Today we're going to be answering a very simple question very deeply. What is the primary job of a trader? Now, if you've already heard about obviously managing risk and preserving capital, we're going to answer that question so much more deeply than you've heard before. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, I'm going to give you guys a moment to subscribe to the channel while we run the intro, and save your like until you've watched till the end. So guys, today we're going to be answering that question that we spoke about. What is the primary job of a trader? And we've heard about, like I said, managing risk and preserving capital. But to answer your question, and I've added some emojis for you guys, simply to answer your question, the primary job of a trader is decision making. I've added some beautiful emojis because I find that very funny. So let's go, guys. Let's actually speak about why I say the primary job of a trader is decision making. So we know that the markets themselves are driven by people that are making decisions. So this is my bad attempt at drawing a person. So people are making decisions. All of these people are making decisions of a bunch of individual pieces of data. All of those individual pieces of data all eventually give us the market itself. So we then see the decision making of people finally represented to us in form of the market and what structures we find happening in the market. Our job is then to look at the structures in the market or the information that the market is giving us, and then we need to use this information to make a decision. So that's ultimately why I'm saying that our job as traders is to make decisions. Now, in this video, guys, I'm gonna show you guys in 4 simple steps how to be, or rather how to make those decisions as efficiently as possible. How do we get better at our job? So first of all, guys, we have data. Now, data to us, and we'll keep on jumping back, and let's just draw this out quickly. So we'll draw just a small piece of price action. This to us is data. What we have on our charts right now is data. Data is just our basic pieces of individual facts, our pieces of information. So all data is when we look at the charts, we're observing things like, okay, cool, I see prices pushing down, I see prices pushing up, I see resistance and support being created, I see what price the market is at. All of those individual facts that we can objectively see is our data. Now, what do we do to our data to make this data useful to us? We need to add context to the data. Now, what is us adding context to the data? So us adding context to our data in this case, and I'm making this process very specific to trading because that's what we are about. So us, after we observe the data, we need to add context to this data. So our context, then we can say, okay, cool, we've connected maybe our trend lines. We've established some resistance. We've now established some resistance there. We've identified an ascending structure. So now we're adding some context as to what information, what data we see. After we've added this context onto our charts, guys, what we then come up with is information. Now, information to us, guys, is organized and useful. That's only when we have information. So once we see what's been going on the charts, that is only data to us. Once we've added some context to that data, we now have information, and that information is now useful information to us. Now we need to move on. Information is our second step of the process. Now that we have information, we need to move on to the third step, guys. We need to add meaning. So what and how do we add meaning to all of this context that we've created? So us adding meaning is now going back to what? to our concepts, to our information that we've learned. Us adding meaning is saying, now that I have my data, I've made my data useful to me and I've turned it into information by adding context. Now my meaning to this context would be my ascending structure. What is the concept that I have in my mind about ascending structures? Ascending structures normally break to the downside. I've added some meaning to my information of my channel, my ascending channel. I also have, in addition, some resistance. I have a resistance trend line. What is the concept behind my resistance? So I'm adding some meaning to the information that I already have. Now that I've added that information that meaning to our information, what do we have? We then have knowledge. Now, knowledge to us is what we have in our minds after we've added some meaning to that information. We then have thought out concepts. So knowledge to us is now us adding the data. We've added context, we now have information, we've added meaning to that information, and we now have knowledge. Knowledge is us, the meaning that we've added to that information is now us adding our thought out processes, things that have been thought out, things that have been understood. That's what we're adding, and we now have, I guess, knowledge. So now that we have knowledge about what we are seeing on the charts, guys, what do we then need to do with our knowledge? With our knowledge, and this is, I guess, the most difficult step of it all, we need to then add insight. And the reason why this step is so difficult is because insight involves the individual. What do we then do after we've added our insight into this? We then have wisdom, guys. Wisdom to us is now, only then once we have wisdom added, once we've added our insight to the knowledge that we have, we then have wisdom. Once we have wisdom, wisdom is understanding our knowledge. When we talk about understanding, guys, we're not talking about knowing. Knowing is knowledge. Once we have all of this information, our thought out processes, we know exactly what we're going to do. That is us understanding, and that shows wisdom. Wisdom is also, guys, applied. So we need to have obviously applied and have been doing and have been testing out our knowledge. Only then do we have wisdom. Once we have an understanding of what we are going to do, and once we've been applying what we've been doing, that shows us that we have wisdom. Only in our wisdom step, guys, does the decision making process come into play. And this is the gem about, remember I told you guys, I'm going to show you guys how to be most efficient using this process, because our job as a trader is to be making decisions, decision making. The only information, the only data that we have as technical traders would be the chart. The charts give us that data. We add context to the information that we see on the charts, and we get information. We organize that, that information to us is now organized and useful. We then add meaning to that useful information, and we then have knowledge. Knowledge to us is thought out concepts that we've derived from the meaning that we've added to the information that we have. We then have wisdom. Only once we are at a point where we have wisdom about all of this data, do we then start making decisions. And this is where a lot of traders go wrong, guys. Some traders make decisions out of just having data. Some traders make decision out of just having information, which, yes, is organized and is useful, but is not enough to make a decision. Some traders make decisions out of just having knowledge. Yes, knowledge is there, knowledge is important, knowledge is useful, knowledge is our thought out concepts, but knowledge alone is not enough. On top of our knowledge, we need to add that insight to get our wisdom, our understanding of this market, and we need to have applied our understanding enough to begin to make decisions. Now that we've summarized everything. I'm going to show you guys how, even as much as we try and run away from the fact that our primary job is to first of all preserve capital and then obviously manage risk, decision making involves that. Let's look at our risk. We'll call this our risk meter on our left hand side. Now, on top is the most risk, at the bottom is the least risk. Now, the higher we are, guys, the higher we are in our process, the closer we are to making a decision involving risk, the closer we are to data, the more risk we have in that decision. The closer we are to making a decision with risk to wisdom we are, the less riskier making that decision will be, the less risk we have on this decision that we are about to make, because we've turned that data into useful information. Once we've turned this data into useful information, to make a decision involving risk with information is less riskier than making a decision without that context. Once we have that information, making that decision without meaning to that information is more riskier. So you can see that the lower down within this hierarchy of information that we make our decision and apply risk, the less riskier that decision will be. Now you know, guys, and just a tip for you guys that have watched until the end. I know we've lost a lot of people along the way because this information is not really specific to how can I make money. And if you think that this information is not specific to how can you make money, then you have not looked deep enough into this information. Now, to give you guys a gem, if you guys are struggling, you guys already see what's on the chart, but you are struggling to get information from what you see on the chart, your focus as a trader should be learning how to add context to your data. If you already have information as a trader and you are struggling on that knowledge, your focus should be adding meaning to your information for you to be able to make a better, sound decision. If you are a trader, and a lot of people are at this stage where they have knowledge, they understand the concepts, your focus as a trader at this point in your journey should be you developing a level of insight, you improving on your understanding, you applying your understanding, and then only jumping into your decision making process. Guys, if you have received the value that has been intended for you in this video, this is the time, this is the opportunity that I'm gonna give you guys to smash the like button, show me that this video has been obviously value to you guys, because you know me, guys, I am in this area of wisdom. And just to give you guys another tip, wisdom, or let's just use a very typical example, guys, and this applies to life in general. We have data. Data is just our individual points of information. They really don't have any meaning. They don't really mean anything to us. Once we add context, so adding context is understanding the individual pieces of data and how they differ from one another. Now that I have context, we then obviously have knowledge. Our knowledge is then us connecting these pieces of information. That is our knowledge. Wisdom, on the other hand, is saying that now that I have knowledge, that I understand how these individual pieces of data interact with each other, wisdom is saying that I will use this in a particular way and I will use this in a particular way. That is wisdom, guys. And this video is basically me putting some wisdom together and combining two totally different things into my process, understanding what my job is and how I can do my job better. And I wanted to share this information with you guys. Hopefully you guys have received the value, guys. Do drop a like if you have, subscribed if you haven't, because there's always value, guys, always value every single week. Otherwise, this is Tramayne, your FX Chasers mentor. Thanks so much for watching until the end, guys. I will see you guys in our future videos. Have a great week, guys. Cheers.